1993 and 1999, Absolon became one of the greatest rock bands in English popular culture. Their greatest hit, Action, united the working and middle class in a story of drug abuse and sexual promiscuity. But now, with the death of drummer Larry Jessup, arguably one of the finest drummers to hit the skins, Absolon's future is uncertain. This documentary, made just after the death of Lawrence Jessup, investigates the uncertain future of Absolon, what they were, and what they stood for. Obviously, the shock death of your drummer Lawrence Jessup must prey very heavily on your soul. How exactly has this affected you?
Well, the main way it's affected me is obviously I've lost a friend, I've lost a colleague, I've lost a drummer, a part of Absolon. I mean, fair enough, he didn't contribute much to the tone, but I've often thought that it would be difficult to replace him, and now that difficulty has become a reality. I mean, I don't even know if Absolon's going to continue this point, because Lee really doesn't seem to understand the situation that we're in now. I don't think he's fully comprehended the fact that the drummer doesn't actually contribute entirely to the tone, the sound. But obviously a great personal loss. I mean, when the drums first started revolving and I saw the spark, I'd rather not speak about that. I think it's a bit too soon to be discussing that.
Hang on. I'm going to give Laurie these. Laurie, these beads are for you. I've had them ever since my first trip abroad many years ago. My first tour. This is for you, Laurie.
Yeah, Laurie. I don't know if you remember the first Glastonbury. Obviously, Glastonbury's not something you really want to remember now, because, I mean, that was a big ball of fire. But there's the pick I used, my first Glastonbury performance, man.
Laurie, I've got something from when we first went to Russia and played with Shiny Flame. This book means a lot to me, and I know that you would have understood.
I don't know how I've actually got 5 references in there. I don't think that's particularly appropriate. Do you think my beads are all right then?
I don't know, some of my nicknames might be best to take them away.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, that means quite a lot to me, that pick.
But symbolic gestures.
Well, to say Lloyd's death had changed my worldview is probably going a little too far. I mean, I've always held on to beliefs that when people die, they can be of huge importance, so that it affects everybody, or of such small importance that nobody notices. And with the exception of the small group around us and Absolon's fans, I doubt many people will have actually noticed Laurie's death. I mean, it was hardly highly publicised, and let's face it, it's not going to change the world. But on a personal note, it's sad, obviously, and the band has to move on without him, which we can do by creating, well, we can either get ourselves a new drummer, or perhaps go in another direction and get a drum machine.
You know,
Well, that's it, it's the end.
So he's only a drummer. It's replaceable, it's totally replaceable. We'll just get a new drummer and carry on like we were before.
No, we were a group.
No. It's not like he contributed to the tone. I mean, it's only drums.
Okay, right.
There's no tone. There's no tone in the drums.
The thing is, we were a group. It was the dynamic of all of us that made Absolon what we are. It's a spiritual thing. The spiritual wins. You kill the spiritual win.
You're totally missing the point. The tone. It's just a drummer.
He's not just a drummer, is he? He was part of Absolon, but a four-piece. For God's sake, I mean, have a bit of respect. You're standing over his grave and even thinking about this. You're bang out of order. You really are.
You're the one.
Don't start the hand thing either. I've had enough of the hand thing.
You start the hand thing, mate.
Do you mean what the future is?
That's what I'm asking you, yes. What is the future?
Well, it's certainly not Absolon, because, you know, Absolon was a four-piece and there was never anything that could really break us apart. We were all... It was very strange. It was like a family.
You're the one who wants to get rid of Absolon, everything Laurie worked hard for. I mean, he did not build that revolving drum kit for nothing.
Well, Laurie could...
Oh. Right, that's enough. Arguing over his grave's one thing, walking on it's another. Look, you're metaphorically spitting over our dead drummer.
You just spat on the grave, Mike.
That wasn't a metaphor, man. That was out of order.
But I was showing you the metaphor. Do you not understand?
There was a visual metaphor.
It was a visual metaphor, because my metaphor was referring to yours.
He wasn't literally spitting on the grave.
Well, I did literally.
It looks like you're wrong, doesn't it? Again.
But that's irrelevant.
Well, he started it.
Kelso, come back.
I'm not...
Come back.
We're making a video here.
Explain, Lee. Go and apologise.
No, but if he's storming off, I'm going to storm off as well.
Where
But I'm going to go this way.
Grave. Come here. When you're working with two highly strung individuals such as them, it's difficult sometimes to hold the pieces together. And the death of Laurie has just intensified that problem. But under the power of ideology and the socialist way forward, I believe that Absolon can become a tiny unit again, fulfil our destiny of world domination.
Thank you kindly.
Okay, let's go back further now. Let's go back to when you were first starting out. Let's go back to your first tour with Spandex Dragon. I don't know if you remember that particularly well.
Spandex Dragon. The Spandex Dragon tour was something I didn't want to go on, really. I mean,
It was your first major break. Surely you were jumping at the chance of hitting the big time.
Not with a band like that, really. I preferred to stay unsigned at the time. It was a sort of decision like that. Kelso wanted to get out there. He wanted to take the music to the masses. But you know, you see, our music is like a little baby to me, and I don't think the baby was really ready for the world. But Kelso ripped the baby from my arms and took it to the world. And you know, I think if anything, that set us back a little bit, because I didn't really feel at the very beginning of the tour anyway that I was actually communicating with the audience on a gut primal level from the heart. Later on in the tour, I did sort of, you know, there were exceptions to that, and quite marvellous exceptions, really. I remember one gig where we just came off, and it was just, I so felt like I was really communicating with the audience, and it was the first time I ever really felt that, and it's one of the most important moments of my life. Yeah. Hello! The thing is, the gig was slightly marred by Kelso holding like one extremely high note on his guitar for over half an hour. It was just, it was appalling. It was feeding back and everything, and we were like, what are you doing? And eventually I stormed off, I left the stage. But Kelso didn't obviously accept it like that. Kelso thought that maybe well, I think to be honest, he thought he'd outwitted me.
Tone. I hit his tone.
It really was like... oh yeah, I think that's enough of that, I think. John, is that alright? Do you want another cigarette?
No, that's how good it was.
This was the best tone I've ever had. Well, yeah, Spandex Dragon, they picked up on us quite early on. I mean, way before Ash and Songwriting Days. I believe we were, I mean, at that point in time, our best song was still Papa. But, which is the first single, you may remember. We actually released that single halfway through the tour. But, yeah, I mean, that first tour was a big stage. I mean, that was sort of going from Absolon, the sort of like the garage rock band, sort of Absolon, the proper finished stage in Rock Article.
Have you shown a t-shirt?
Slave, that's how I feel.
That's how he feels. This gig was
society.
This gig was from the gut.
I feel like a guru. I feel like a guru.
Slave.
Guru of tone.
Slave to society.
Guru of tone. I think that's when people first started to feel the power and the phenomenon that we had. They first started to feel the tone. It's fucking beautiful. It's the best tone I've ever hit.
Like
All tour I've been looking for that tone. Now I hit the tone. You're telling me I can only hit it for like what?
Oh no, just once. I'm thinking you can hold that little thing going.
Mike, can you hit me on the back, please?
Plug it.
Hey!
Decimal time.
No.
I mean, you all wanted the tone for like half an hour.
Okay, I'm cool.
We're thinking.
That was a beautiful tone. I think that's probably the epitome of greatness. I mean, that was the best moment on the tour for me. I mean, I found that tone, I found that note, and I hit it once, and I thought that tone's fantastic. That sound is so good. And I don't think the rest of the band realised it at first, but I think they gradually cottoned on. And after I hit the tone again, and I began to hold it. The first time it felt good, so I hit it a second time, third time, a fourth time, and on the fifth time, I got the sustain. I mean, it wasn't the most long held out note I've ever done. I mean, I'm still since that point I've been working on and have worked on in the past. I mean, special guitar devices to enhance the tone. But at that point, I think that was great, and I managed to actually sort of stretch the tone over a good 15-17 minutes. Is this in my tone?
No. Look, Absolon are flying high. We just had a great gig. We're just saying that maybe 20 minutes is enough.
Hey! I've had it with you. I've had it.
Yeah, well, I'm fortunate enough to have a copy of that gig on video, but it's not something I bandy about or show to anyone, including the other members of the band. I actually found a Japanese tourist at that gig who had filmed the whole occasion for posterity, and thinking that, well, and quite rightly I'm fairly certain that his video would be more use to me than it was to him. I commandeered it off him and have since watched it, well, infrequently I'd say. But I could never let Kelso see it because he wouldn't give it back. Without me, the band will end. Basically, I'm waltz altogether. Fuck the tone, fuck the art, fuck 'em all. Well, it was one of those little pieces of Absolon history. I mean, basically, everybody talks about the tone and the half-hour tone and how Lee was infuriated with the whole, well, preposterousness of it all, but I really didn't find problems with that. It gave me a big opportunity to walk amongst the masses in the crowd and hand out leaflets spreading the Absolon message and ideas, and half an hour is a long time, and I did a lot of planning in that half an hour, and during my time on the stage I actually came up with an awful lot of my ideas for the Absolon's ideological plan, or the ID plan as I like to call it, which really is the drive behind the whole band.
What exactly is this plan you refer to?
Well, the ID plan is the plan for the conquest of the world by socialism.
Do the rest of the band agree on your ideological beliefs? Do they see Absolon as a vehicle for the mobilisation of mass socialism on a worldwide scale?
Yes.
Politics. No, I don't know anything about that, I'm afraid. What did he say?
The ID plan.
That seems to be a very interesting document. Maybe you could go through that with us.
Well, yeah, of course. Well, my original plan was to have a didactic ideological conditioning song, and so when Kelso was playing that note, I thought of the ID plan as perhaps the half-hour song that could be sung over something, well, music or just one tone. It really doesn't matter to me. And so if you notice, you probably can't see, but if I just read a bit to you, the front cover, which features an oppressed world, the intervention of Absolon, and a happy world, obviously, is actually partly in song. I'll read it to you. Our children must drink our tears to survive, the oppressed people of the poor people of the world. If only a suitable melodic saviour would arrive. And that's when they're asking for Absolon to arrive, and that's us interjecting ourselves in world affairs. And if the face happiness thing, you see the difference there. We are free from tyranny, thanks to Absolon, the musical vanguard of the masses. And my plan was to have the whole thing in song, but well, it still could be used in song, but I didn't want rhymes, and it was too difficult to make it all rhyme, so I stopped. Tell us when you're ready and I'll explain things. Perhaps I could get a pointer here. A toothbrush I could use, yes. Pre-Absolon, you see the capitalist king, yes? The fat cat, and it's probably too small for you to see with the camera, sad man who has not heard Absolon down there. And if you follow the inevitable arrow of history to any one of the 4 plans that I've created...
So the plans do not have to run simultaneously?
No, you can't do more than one of them.
Right,
it wouldn't work. They're look, or plan 1 or plan 2, plan 2 or plan 3 or plan 4. And either of them, any of them in fact, could work. And the inevitable arrow of history then leads us to post-Absolon. If you notice there, the king hanging from a noose where he's obviously being killed to rid us of the remnants of feudal society, the fat cat being feasted upon by the masses, man inspired by Absalon with his knife and fork, eating away, metaphorically, might I add, there won't be capitalism or cannibalism. It's a metaphorical eating away at the fat cat, not the literal one.
Well, I've often thought about politics. I mean, almost every 4 years, when there's a general election, I seriously consider which party I shall vote for. And in the past, that's always been pretty much staunch support for the Liberal Democrat Party because of their strong use of tone. This is Jesus versus Marx.
That was the year we played Ashen for the first time, was it not?
It was also the event was dubbed the Great Ball of Flame incident, where all four members of the band and several members of the front row audience were seriously wounded owing to the fireworks that Lee had planned.
Well, yeah, I remember it. It was the end of the gig. I mean, they've all told you this, surely. You know what happened. Why are you always tramping up pieces of history that are irrelevant to what we're doing now? You know the story. What sort of insight do you want from me? I didn't set the fireworks.
So, then you wrote Ashen.
And Lee wrote Ashen. I just made it great.
And what happened was, you released that, you premiered it at Glastonbury.
Yes, at Glastonbury. Fantastic performance. Slightly marred, obviously, by the well, what was done by the press, the Ball of Flames incident.
Basically, the whole gig went fantastically well, and I couldn't believe that I was actually sort of connecting with these people, and people were listening to our music, and our music was going into them and becoming part of them and changing their lives. I mean, even if it's only in like the smallest of ways, their lives were still being changed by what we were doing. And you know, some people's lives were physically changed, such as the people who went blind.
Here we are, Glastonbury 1995. We're playing it. On that stage, they haven't let the people in yet. But we're really looking forward to it, aren't we?
Fantastic, excellent, brilliant. That's all I can say about Glastonbury 95. We just come off tour with
Spandex Dragon.
Spandex Dragon, great tour. Some little places in Europe. And
Yeah,
now
Lee was a bit arty-farty about it all. But
you get that, and that's part of the band now. Yeah. We're really looking forward today with playing with our heroes, Analog Zoo.
Analog Zoo, I mean, they're fantastic, aren't they?
Headlining the Glastonbury. I mean, what we just at the little stage, the second stage, it doesn't matter. Analog Zoo and Absolon.
I mean, Analog Zoo is going to be a fucking fantastic gig, I tell you. I'm really looking forward to it personally. I mean, I've been working on my tone for weeks. I've had all my guitars set up at home, and I reckon I've got a special tone, my Glastonbury tone. I think it sort of like sums up all the passion I've been trying to get through for the whole last tour, and I don't think I quite made it on tour, but now.
Everyone was very keen when it happened and the press dubbed it the Ball of Fire or whatever. Everyone was very keen to, you know, try and work out who was doing what and whose fault it was. Everyone was very keen to attribute blame. Kelso himself has always been very keen to attribute blame to everything, and we've had many arguments about that. He's always sort of, that was your fault, no, that was your fault. I mean, I don't want to get bitter about Kelso now. I mean, I think it's all a bit too late now, really. I think if anything, I should pay homage to him. He certainly understands the tone, but I don't think it was entirely my fault. I mean, other people put the fireworks there. I told them to do it, but you know, out of all the pyrotechnic experts who came along, that I wouldn't listen to, you'd imagine some of them would have sort of said, no, there is a roof. That's all they had to say. There is a roof. Well, he still hasn't sorted out the fucking fireworks. I just turn this off. Oh yeah. Thank you. And the shoes are coming up.
I wouldn't worry about the fireworks too much, Lee. I mean, it's the tone that matters.
Playing with bands such as Blues, Tree Dog and Sky Monkey. We're really looking. Well, I mean, this
I'm
is
looking
it.
forward to Sky Monkey actually. They're a bit.
Well,
bit
hopefully we'll get to. They're two after us, but you know, that's because we're new. But hopefully we'll get to see them.
Yeah, we're also really excited because we're going to debut a new song, and we really think this is quite possibly. I think we're going to release it as a single in a couple of months.
I think so. We've got to release something as a single. This is just spot on. It's called.
This is it.
This is called Ashen.
Ashen is it.
So the fireworks I'd organised to you know, blast off, if you will, during the build-up of Ashen. Well, they sort of went up, they hit the roof, and then they came back down, and some of them pelted out into the audience. And what it did is it created like a backdraft, and it sucked air into the stage area, and then it blew, and then it went back out. So I mean, it seems almost strange now, but generally the front row of people either went blind or had permanent scarring. But you see, they were permanently affected by the gig. That's a gig they'll never forget. As far as art goes, I think that's the ultimate.
I think it was Laurie's first real near miss with fire, and it was certainly my first and last near miss with fire, pretty much. I mean, we all had severe burns. We were in hospital for a good 3 days afterwards. I think Lee got the least of it.
Sorry.
You find that funny?
Would it be fair to say that not only that you almost killed all other 3 members of the band?
But the members of the band, you see, this is the sort of things that I get in trouble for, but I really do believe the other members of the band wouldn't mind the pain, because it allows them to play their music better on another plane, a plane that we don't quite understand, you see.
You could call that the pain plane.
5 months.
Absolon works on a road, and the road goes straight forward towards our goal, the ideological goal. On one side of the car, right, is Kelso, and Kelso tries to turn us slightly this way, not too far from the road, but just enough to divert us on the path. Lee, on the other hand, is on the other side of the car, turning the car that way, trying to take us to an artistic, perhaps too far, you could say, artistic, and losing the integrity of the band through pretense. And Laurie, before his death, was sort of asleep in the back of the car, and Kelso's turning his wheel that way, and Lee's turning his wheel that way, and it's a car with enough room for 3 people at the front, if you can imagine.
I don't think anyone would deny that there is a certain amount of, should we say, genius at work, and Kelso would say that he is undoubtedly that genius, where I don't think that's strictly true. I think really the band is more like a vessel for the genius, and although a lot of people may say that because I do write the songs, then therefore I am the genius, I don't think the genius is in me. I think I take it from somewhere else, some sort of spiritual level. I think it comes from somewhere spiritual, comes down into my head, and then the ideas form, and then it goes out of my head, through my nervous system, down my arms, and eventually out of my fingers into the instrument that I happen to be playing, perhaps a guitar.
If you imagine this car, but obviously it's going to be bigger, it's got a wheel there and a wheel there, and Kelso's turning his that way and Lee's turning his that way. Laurie's, say, there, asleep, and basically it's my job in the middle. I don't have a wheel, I'm just putting it back, that's where it goes. To just keep my foot on the accelerator and try and talk to Lee and Kelso, and as they turn towards me, their arms inevitably slightly turn their wheels towards me, and the more both their wheels go forward, the quicker my accelerator pushes the car forward on the road of ideology. Is that probably the easiest way of explaining it?
I mean, I've heard lots of accusations in the music press over the years, childish, petty. I mean, lots of people have compared us to squabbling brothers, but I think it's more deep-rooted than that. I think it's based in the fact that Lee just doesn't quite understand the tone.
So it all comes back to the tone.
Well, it doesn't everything.
I don't really know, but...
You don't know?
Well, I'm not a musician. I don't quite understand the tone.
But you're making music. You feel you're qualified to make a music documentary without understanding the tone?
I'm not. What I'm saying is that from my point of view, it's I'm almost neutral. I don't understand the tone, but then I don't disagree with it. I'm not saying Lee does disagree with the tone, but
You're killing the music.
neutral
What are you
to the
doing?
tone.
People you should be in the music industry.
I'm not killing the music. I mean, I think that's rather harsh. What I'm doing is trying to
Well,
investigate.
can you understand the difference between this and this?
I'm sorry, both those things sound almost identical to me.
So you don't understand the tone?
In the car, they all know nobody's going to get out. Well, Laurie sort of fell out the back and was left on the road. But as the 3 in the front people, no one's going to get out the car. It's just a question of who pulls it which way. And so Kelso will argue for the tone, perhaps even further than he believes, and he'll always say that it's the music, the music, the music, and Lee will be arguing for it's the art, the art, the art. And they both know they're going to have to compromise and do what I tell them.
But what Kelso does is this. He would sort of go, and he listens to the sound that the instrument is making, where what I do isn't so sort of, not so sort of base as that. What I do is I take the ideas from somewhere else. The ideas come to me and then they go into the guitar. So, I mean, it might be a case of, that to me is genius. Can you see that? See, I'm not even playing a note, but it's the fact that it's a song without sound. And I think that's the genius that comes from somewhere else. So, that was a bit of genius there, really.
Okay, let's move on again. Sort of sticking to the subject of Mark and Lee's, or Calso as is popularly known, and Lee's arguments, we'll move on to probably the most publicised, maybe the most important argument they had slightly later, just after the release of Action, which had been debuted a few months earlier at Glastonbury, to Top of the Pops, which was of course a fateful evening whereby the band ended up splitting because of that incident.
Top of the Pops was a giant mistake. Top of the Pops was the band's first chance to use nationwide television to spread our message, and you always don't want to place blame, but the blame lies solely on Lee.
Lee's got a harebrained notion. His idea wanted to fly around the stage on wires. Well, I thought it detracted from the sound. I thought the tone would suffer, and so I disagreed with him.
And so you didn't eventually play Top of the Pops because of this?
Hi, Kelso.
Hello?
Yeah, are you alright, yeah?
I'm okay, you and your own. As good as you can be after Dandy Ponce's round your week.
Yeah, alright, come on. We need to get back
Come on,
together.
talk something. It's not just like any old gig, is it?
I know, listen, but we're not going to get over it by never seeing each other. That would be the end of Absolon.
Well, yeah, I don't see the problem with that at the moment, quite frankly.
Because we need to move forward. We need to get back together and talk. Some negotiations.
I don't think there's anything to negotiate.
Well, you've got problems and so's Lee, but we can sort these problems out and move forward as a unit.
Well, what do you want to do about it?
Well, I want to meet up. There was no need to be flying unless you had an important point to make, and to be honest, sometimes I don't think Lee has the important point to make that he's flying for, and he just flies to the sky, hoping that he'll find his purpose when he gets there, when clearly you need to find your purpose on the ground and then fly up holding it in front of you.
I know it's been hard for both of you, but we need to sort this out. Now the whole band's together again for the first time since Top of the Pops. It's time to...
I wish Dyke is that idiot.
Please, can we avoid hand gestures and loud voices?
Yeah, basically what happened is I wanted to add an element of stagecraft, so I was going to give my guitar part to a session musician, and then I wanted wires attached to me so that I could sort of float off into the crowd during the build-up bit, the same part of Action where we were going to have the fireworks at the Glastonbury show. And but Kelso didn't like this because it detracted from the tone. Basically, it didn't detract from the tone at all. It had nothing to do with the sound. Kelso was more concerned about the camera would be on me flying through the air as opposed to on him making the chuk noise. And I think this was a bit too much for his ego to take. And so eventually he threw a strop, and the whole thing ended in quite an ugly way.
1, 2, 3, Absolon!
Absolon.
Yes. Yes, I think we've really achieved something today.
Well, we would have played Top of the Pops still, probably, even if we'd had that disagreement, but obviously what with the police and us being locked away overnight, we were unable to be released in time for the filming.
But it's not just a physical thing, is it? It's not just a touching of hands. I don't mind touching him. I've hit him enough. I don't mind touching him.
It hit me, not that I've noticed.
Come on.
Was he always ready to do it?
One little handshake. No, you started it. Well, no, you both did. I'm not going to take sides. One little handshake. Represent solidarity of the workers.
Oh, he's taking my tone! He's taking my tone!
Don't be silly.
We were taken away by the police. Both me and Kelso were charged. Although we didn't actually press charges against each other, the other people who happened to be hurt in the fight did, however, press charges. But they got hurt by sort of chairs and things being flung. Well, what can you say, really? It's...
Very good. At last, it's taken me 4 weeks since Top of the Pops fiasco to get the band back together, and finally the handshake. Now, I know they've been fighting, but to them the handshake is everything, and they wouldn't have shaken hands shook hands, unless they'd really felt that they'd achieved something in the negotiations that we've been having with ourselves and our drummer Laurie. And hopefully that one handshake could represent a new future for me, Laurie, and both. For God's
They could release it as a video.
Thank you very much.
Well, if I want to visit Europe or visit anywhere where I don't want to be known and generally not know that people, they won't recognise me, I can use my other passport, and then according to the authorities and the government, Michael is still in this country, but of course I know and my fake passport can tell me that Chow Lai has gone. And while Michael will still be here, nobody perhaps knows where he is because I'm not physically here, and if you rang me up I wouldn't be able to answer the phone, but you just assume I was on the toilet or just asleep or ill maybe. But I'll show you the difference in the passports again. Michael Chow Lai.
One final thing, Mr. Jameson, I don't know if you can hold up the camera please, but your tattoo on your arm seems very interesting.
Yeah, would you like a better look at it there? Can you?
Well, let's try and get a nice zoom on that. Particularly fine piece of body art.
It is magnificent, isn't it?
Michael Chow Lai. Michael Chow Lai. And when I'm under Chow Lai, I can put on a voice as well. Hello, I Chow Lai. I mean, it's like, I mean, I know the voice sounds a little sort of Chinese, Japanese, but I'm trying to pretend I'm like an English person who's lived there for a while, because I can't change my face yet.
The first meaning is the year of the snake, which is 1977, the year I was born. And below that is also the gods may fall, which is an Absolon lyric, and I had it done when I was in China, and it's one of those things which is incredibly important to me.
But the fact is, we were on tour in Japan, he got drunk, and he met a little Japanese girl there, and she was called something like Kwachwoma, or something along those lines, I don't remember exactly now, and he had her name tattooed on his arm. But he was drunk one night, and particularly grotty tattoo parlour, I think it was pretty infected. I mean, it looked for a while there like he was going to lose his arm.
No, you see, this is the sort of thing that Kelso always comes out with. Oh, with a girlfriend. Did he bring up Quattro, did he?
Yes.
Someone that I went out with for a very long time, in fact. I mean, I'm sure he's told you about some sort of fling or something, but it was someone I loved very, very dearly.
How long were you out with this girl for?
It's not strictly how long I went out with her for that's important, is it? It's more the fact that I loved her. You know, it's like the tattoo. The tattoo is on my arm. It's more the fact I have it than what it means.
So how long did you go out with her for?
Well, you know, it's difficult to say, really. I mean, it was a long time ago, and love clouds the mind, but it was possibly under 12 months.
How much under 12 months? Substantially under 12 months?
Possibly substantially under 12 months.
So you had to put a figure on how much under 12 months it was?
Probably 11 and a half months, under 12 months. But I still loved her. I loved her very, very dearly. It's like this tattoo. I love this tattoo, and you know, if I ever lost it, I'd be distraught. Obviously, I'm not going to lose it because it's a tattoo, but if I lost my arm, I'd probably be a bit more worried about losing my arm than the tattoo. But I'd make sure I got the tattoo off my arm. Does that seem sick?
Right, you've got the back of the booty bar.
my documentary Is Absolon, I was hoping for an insight into the lives and working relationships of one of this country's finest works of art. What I found was frankly shocking. 3 broken men attempting to create order from the world around them, struggling to pick up the pieces from shattered dreams. Their friendship and respect for one another had fueled the union that produced Ashen, and yet it was their vulnerability and social inadequacies that allowed the song to communicate directly with us. Absolon are more than gods, gurus, artists and revolutionaries. So love them, cherish them, and hold them dear to your hearts, because in many ways Absolon are just like you and me, only with infinitely more talents.
Sex like that now feels a drain. Drugs like that could rot your brain.
I was thinking about committing suicide actually. I think that would make me most incredibly famous.
You look cash and grey in the face when your makeup rubbed away. These destructs set you place. You can stand out of your face. Go on trips inside your head. Sleep with others when he's sad. But you don't like being sober.
It's really just a question of how many people read about us and how often.
Sex like that now feels a drain. Drugs like that could rot your brain. A life like that.
Trying to set up another concept band that I've thought of. Essentially it's going to be pretty much, well, the name of the band is going to be Feel the Tone, and essentially it's going to be based around taking a show on the road, which is basically a 45-minute celebration of tone. You find that funny?
across its knees while ashen fingers line up